Hi everyone, so I'm James, a co-founder of WandaVision. I'm going to tell you a little bit about virtual reality and headsets, and also look at the reality of human reality and what makes us human, and kind of how we distinguish between things that aren't human and the kind of emotional response that evokes with everyone. I got into design from Loughborough University. I studied product design, that's my background, and I was on a placement year with Joe, who sat there, another co-founder of WandaVision. On the placement, we were about a month in, decided we quite enjoyed the visualization side of things, more than the product design, although we enjoyed that as well. And through that path, we sort of started to do that and look into other areas of visualization. And through that path, kind of eventually have come to high-end stills, animation, and then more recently kind of moving on with the technology into virtual reality headsets. And we're looking at now how we can use that to create a new experience for clients and how they can use that in their brands, and ultimately how the consumer actually responds to that technology and if they're going to embrace it. So I'm going to give you a little bit of an introduction in terms of what WandaVision do quickly as well, just so you can get an idea of the work we do and then see why we kind of use virtual reality. So we are an agency, as Simon said, we're based in Henley, and oh yeah, sorry, no, send across the screen, but yes, we're based in Henley. We create high-end imagery, mainly in automotive, product, architecture and interior sectors, for a range of clients, range of brands. Lucky enough to work with some really cool companies and kind of put our stamp on their brand and the visuals that they're seeing. Our ultimate aim is always to create something that's really questioning, or people don't even realise is not a photo, and that's what we look to do. I'll show you a few examples and let you guys judge for yourselves. The world is becoming a more virtual place the whole time, so it's increasingly hard to distinguish an image from reality and see what's what. And film and things is kind of driving that as well. Film's pushing the boundaries of what's real and what's not, and with technology now we can create things that are more impressive, more amazing than real life anyway. So it's looking at how that's helping us in virtual reality. So this is a little bit about how we create imagery, and it's quite a busy marketplace where we're in. It's quite competitive, so we look to inject a little bit of magic and emotion into images that we create, and it's about the response that our images are creating and engaging with the audience. So it's quite a scientific process, so we understand the physics and material science of how to create a nice looking image. That's the fundamental really of what we do, and making that look real is the basis point. But we like to sprinkle a little bit of magic on images and try and create something that's more engaging to the audience. So it's by putting all the fine touches into an image and actually observing the real world and seeing how we can kind of bring that into our imagery in a bit more of an interesting way than a kind of CAD-like image. And lastly, the motion. So we'll look at light and how we bring that to play into imagery and how that actually evokes a bit more of an emotional response in the user. So I'm just going to stand here because I'll quickly skip on this. You can't see these too well actually at all. Even my iPad's a bit better representation of the imagery. But yeah, exactly. That's not going to show up too well at all either. So I'll flick through these quite quickly, but it's to give a bit of an idea, which it doesn't too accurately. That's more for a bit of creative lighting. You can actually see the product slightly more in reality, but it's a bit darker. So different sectors, they're not showing too well at all, but so architecture and interiors. You can go to our website, the images look a lot nicer on there. Okay, so what makes something real to a human? And there's some interesting research which is called the Uncanny Valley. So it's the hypothesis in the field of aesthetics. So it effectively is saying if something looks like a human and we move like a human, but it's not quite right, sometimes it kind of evokes a bit of kind of a weird, strange response to us because we think they're human, but they're not quite. And it's looking at the graph showing as something becomes quite human, we still like it, have quite a good emotional response to it. This is a better term for this axis is really kind of empathetic response and how we view the character and the characteristics of them. So for example, to give it a bit more meaning, so we've got stuffed animal, corpse. I didn't quite choose all the things on this graph, lifted that from Wikipedia, but you can see the healthy person is the ultimate, obviously, reality for us. We know they're human, But if we start to get into this zone down here, it's where, say, a robot might be quite realistic, but they don't quite respond in the way you expect them to on face value, and that's what then knocks us back a little bit with a strange response. So I've got a small game, if you will, contain your excitement. So it's looking at where we might put some things on the graph to kind of make it make sense and kind of give you an example. So the stick man, if anyone can see, is going to be bottom left, because he's not very human-like. He's not really creating much of an emotional response with us. So he's down there. So Mr. Incredible is slightly more human, and he comes a little bit higher up on the graph, because if you've seen it, they're quite likable characters. But he's not so human that he's evoking a kind of awkward response in you. Homer comes in on here. So he's not too human still, but quite likable. But this is where it kind of gets a bit more interesting. So Repli Q2 is one of the Japanese robots, and incredible technology, and it actually just looks completely real. And even the technology and the movement and characteristics is quite convincing, but it's got that element which is a little bit strange to us, because it's a bit foreign, and she drops into here. Reason being, when someone looks so human, you're judging them by human standards, and therefore it's strange when they don't quite behave in the way you expect them to. Whereas when a character is quite visibly not human, you're not judging them by the same standards, so you give them a bit more an empathetic response than you would to something that then becomes strange to us. Snow White, just to complete my graph, a little bit further up, Polar Express. It comes a little bit down because it was when the animation started to push into a bit more realism. However, it wasn't quite perfect, so it starts to be a little bit odd to us again. And Cubo Girl is pretty much as real as it can be. She just looks like a photo. I had to make sure I had the right robot when I was Googling it, and it wasn't just a human. But she really falls, as you can imagine, down here, because when you actually interact with her, you just get a little bit of a strange feeling, and you're judging by different standards. And then I put myself up here as a healthy human. So I didn't put myself in there to guess. We didn't want to guess to a different section. So
you in the Uncanny Valley?
Yeah, the corpse at the bottom, yeah. So effectively, it's the violation of norms, as I say. So if the entity is sufficiently non-human in appearance, we're not judging the characteristics by the same, by the same standards as we are if they look human. And if they look almost human, we're judging them by human standards, and the non-human characteristics become noticeable and give us a sense of strangeness. So, but in terms of virtual reality headsets, we're more concerned with environments and not people. But I thought it was interesting to see the difference there. So let's look at virtual reality. So there's not much in our perceptual system we don't have much to tell us whether it's real or not. So if we become immersed by something, our brain goes, yeah, fine, must be real if it's convincing enough and we're fully immersed. So if we start up by thinking of a 3D film that you might be at the cinema, for a moment you might be immersed. If you can't see the edges of the screen, you're there, you can believe it for a second. If you move your head left to right, you suddenly see the edge of the screen and the feeling of presence is broken. So on the other hand, with virtual reality headsets, what we can do is we've got a greater field of vision, and computer algorithms and with the lenses, and we recalculate the picture so it moves as you move. So when you turn your head to the left or the right, the picture moves with you and it's all calculated. So the illusion's not broken. It's as if you've got a 360-degree screen around you, and suddenly the trick is complete and your brain thinks you're there. So the kind of combination of where a user is immersed in an environment and can interact in that same environment is called telepresence. And the real aim of it is, and what game companies that are developing with the software and with the hardware are trying to achieve is the feeling that you've lost your identity and you forget your situation and life, and you're so immersed in the world of imagination and adventure and exploration that you feel as if you're there and act as if you're there. So before I go on to how it works, actually, I said a bit on previous virtual reality. So the technology has actually been around for a while, or people have been attempting to create virtual reality headsets, but previously they had a field of view of about 40 to 60 degrees, which is kind of looking like down a toilet roll tube. It's not such a great immersive experience. So a 360-degree display would be the ultimate, as I said, but prohibitively expensive, so it's not been done. However, at the University of South Carolina, they've studied how narrow you can make that field in a feasible, financial way before the field of view or illusion of immersion is compromised. So our peripheral vision is not something we really think about too much at all, but it really influences how we respond to the environment around us. So it's deeply wired within our brains, so that if a lion jumps out at you, you sit in your peripheral vision before the lion catches you, or you escape from the lion. So the sweet spot there is about 90 to 100 degrees before you're completely immersed and you can't see anything around you. So with the research done at the university, open source software was released, and that's really where Oculus Rift, Sony and Samsung have been developing products, which are the ones that most people know, and creating headsets, or HMDs, sorry, head-mounted displays. So how do they work? So there's Oculus, and so you've got two lenses that you can see there, and that's kind of showing you a bit of a vision of what you see through the lenses. So mainly you require a PC to run the software, or a console to run the games. You need the headset, which holds the lenses in front of your eyes, and then you need some sort of input, such as the head tracking or motion tracking or controllers, depending on the level of immersion. So the aim of all the technology is the total immersion. So it's trying to get your brain to really think you're in the space and completely forget the computer and the headset and believe you act as you would in the real world. So how do we get there? Okay, so let's get the toys out. So lots of cables so you can move around lots. So this is Oculus. It's the developer kit at the moment, and it should be coming out for consumers soon. As you can see, you've got two lenses, so one for each eye. Each eye sees the world slightly differently. So if you close one eye and look at the other, the image jumps very slightly. So the images are created like that. So when we produce content for that, the image is very slightly different and it adjusts. So the two 2D images create a 3D stereoscopic image, which allows you to feel the depth of the space that you're in and get the feeling that you're there, and it's a little bit more immersive. So head tracking is one of the ways that you can make the feeling more complete of total immersion. So if you move around, you have this little thing here that tracks where your head is. It's called the 6 degrees of freedom, and it works on an XY axis, so you've got full movement. So motion tracking is the second way. So you can have controllers like a PlayStation controller that would help you move through an environment, or alternatively, which is quite cool research has been done to show that you can have a 30-foot room completely empty, and the software can slightly rotate as you walk around, so you'd never hit the walls, which is quite a cool thought in terms of what you could do with that technology. It could be the next theme park. You could have any experience you wanted if the software was created. And if you couple that, if you imagine, with wind blowing or heat, you could feel like you're near a volcano and completely have a kind of virtual experience that you're fully immersed in. The next big kind of jump with this, and software is being created for, I think it's Fove, with one of the hardware creators, is eye tracking. So it has an infrared sensor which actually looks at your eye movement and can even see when you're focusing. So when your head's static, you can still look around the scene or the virtual environment, and it also allows you to get depth, so you can kind of focus on different objects, and the software will create that illusion of blur. So
well, it will do that by judging pupil dilation and things like that. It can actually tell.
That's it. So it looks, yeah, exactly. Which is quite crazy. And if you think about the kind of application of that in terms of games and the experience it can lead to, it's kind of a really cool thought. So how do we actually create the content? So there's different ways of doing this. I'm going to just give a static image example, but if you're animating or creating games, it's the same kind of principles, but with obviously more frames per second. Or if it's a real-time rendering environment, that's a whole different ball game. So this cylindrical map shows how you, I mean, this is the main application for us as well. It shows how you've got an interior kind of stretched out, and it's a full image like an HDRI, hyperdynamic range image, where you've got, or like a panoramic image where you spin round, and you can see all the ceiling and floor in one shot. But then you get 2 images of that, one for each eye, and as you move around, the computer algorithm calculates rather where you are in the scene, and then it gives that feeling that you're there, which is pretty impressive when you play with it. Another way of mapping it is the cubes. So there's a 90° by 90° image as a square, and if you imagine closing this box off, you've got the whole image in there, and again it recalculates, your brain kind of calculates where you are, and you see it as if you're in the room. So the applications are really vast. I've just gotten a little bit of information on what they are for us, but in terms of property work that we do, or interiors, if you're looking to buy a property and you're an overseas client, you could actually purchase one of the headsets, and we could just send you the images before you're there. And instead of having a flat image, you can then look around the room, and obviously link it up to software we can move throughout the rooms of the property as a whole, or create an animation where you can still look around and you're moving as you go. So it gives you a completely more engaging experience with that property. So when I was doing the research for the talk, I came across some quite interesting uses that a Swiss startup, MindMaze, had used the software for Oculus specifically. And they were looking at medical purposes for it, and they actually looked at the use of mirror boxes for stroke patients. And they were finding that the theory is if you move your arm there and it can be seen in the mirror as if your other arm is moving, it helps to bring back the operation of your other limbs. So what MindMaze had done is, in the same kind of principles with the headset, they motion tracked your arm, and in the virtual environment you actually see your body working and functioning properly, and they're actually finding evidence that it's actually helping people to heal from strokes and regain control of their limbs, which is pretty cool. So I'm going to touch quickly on mixed reality, because I think this is Microsoft's launch in January was HoloGlass. Got some images of it, so it was briefly mentioned earlier, and effectively it's a goggles that you wear, and it's projecting imagery onto the lens in front of you, and also blasting light into your eye, which apparently they say isn't painful, but you can sounds it, but you can then see imagery which interacts with your own world. So it's quite an interesting dynamic, and they've got some very cool images of how it works if you can see them. If it actually looks like that when it kind of comes live, I think it will just be an absolute game changer.
It does.
You've done.
The company I'm with is a Microsoft reseller, and some of our colleagues went to their big annual shindig, which happened in America, and they showed there some videos of HoloLens, which is like this augmented reality, as you say, and so they were able to show a motorbike with no fairing, and then they could change the fairing, the design of the fairing, the colour of the fairing, everything. It was like a 3D fully rendered model, but it was all virtual. Yeah. But the fairing was virtual, the bike was real.
Okay, so they just projected around the amazing.
And then they could change the design of the fairing. It's just astonishing.
It's amazing,
You can see a lot of that stuff on YouTube actually.
Yeah.
And the one that blew me away was this architectural one, where actually the architects can design
I think I've seen that, yeah.
Walk their clients virtually. They can go right down in scale, so that the building is all around them.
Yeah.
It's just phenomenal.
So really, we should just forget Oculus, everything I've said there. It's all about HoloLens. That's the next step. Yeah, it's all the new thing. I've got a friend actually at Jaguar Land Rover. He said the same. They'd been playing with it, and they just said it was incredible what you can actually do with the technology. And their design managers were saying it's just going to completely change the way they design, the whole process. Everything's interactive. And another cool feature, because they've got motion detectors and sensors and cameras on the front of the goggles, it can do gesture control. And there's a very cool video of it as well, where there's someone on a video call effectively explaining how to plumb in a tap, and they're gesturing and they're drawing on the screen that the other person can see as a hologram around the objects, and it's it's incredible, really, what you could do. The applications are quite amazing. So, hence why my last slide is enter the matrix. A lot of the research I was reading was everyone's alluding to the fact that as the technology develops over the next couple of decades, people will be plumbing into the brain more. There's already a headset, we're just talking about, there's a headset that taps into your brain waves, and that's what Mind Maze were doing as well, in actually looking at trying to assess whether it was working with the patients that they were trying to heal. So they were looking at the brain waves, but people are saying that effectively we'll soon plug into your actual brain and you could just completely go into a virtual world, which is just no boundaries to the real world, and it's literally the Matrix. So on that thought, I'll just leave you with the potential of what it could be in a few years, and completely against what we've all been saying about getting everyone into a room. We should all just plug into a computer and just live any life you want. But yeah, no, thanks anyway for listening.
January 27th, we're going to do virtual.
Yeah,
virtual
exactly.
meetup.
They need to come next time.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
everyone get a headset.
And stay indoors, keep away from the rain.
Yeah.
Thank you. Any questions?
So for a game using Oculus Rift, that's obviously going to be quite data intensive, and a lot of games are moving into the internet, they're cloud-based, online. So, how much bandwidth do you need?
It's a good question. I'm not too sure, to be honest. With the actual technology itself, I wouldn't claim to be an expert on the hardware. We're more looking at applications of it for us, obviously commercially and business-wise, so we're looking at how it works. But there is an interesting point in terms of actually, will it work with what everyone wants to do, and also just the consumer, if they actually buy into it. I think gaming is the biggest industry. For us, we're kind of looking at whether a client will buy it. So, okay, you've got some wealthy person that wants to buy a house abroad. Are they actually going to buy a headset for us to be able to do what we want? And that's one of the things we're looking at the moment. Or how do you get it? You just have to send them a headset, maybe with the proposed plans. So that is the biggest challenge to it. I think it's whether it takes off is down to the consumer, like everything. So, but yeah, I don't know on the bandwidth side, but I would imagine PlayStation are developing one, I think. So Sony's one which works with PS4. They'll probably be looking at that, but maybe it'll be that you have to have the game in the console. Not too sure on that.
So I've got one for you, and it's kind of my prerogative to ask this kind of
it's
question. So, like, my big issue with app development was they made it so easy that any idiot could develop an app, right? Without very little kind of comprehension of what those apps are doing to people. We just make it really frictionless, people can do it, blah, 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 get it out there. A million apps in the App Store, great. Facebook obviously have a vested interest in Oculus Rift being incredibly easy for people to develop for, with very little comprehension of what it's going to do to people's Swede. Like, they have no idea what's going to go on in there for like 15 years. How do you think how do you think it should be or could be regulated in terms of, do you just get it out there and then worry in 5 years' time that people are going to start dribbling? Yeah. Or do you kind of, does there have to be some governance model for credible companies like yours to be doing it and not dicks in their bedroom?
Yeah, true. I guess they've had the same problem with drones being a nuisance. Everyone's got them in the skies full of drones. Yeah. So they're great, but but I guess there's an element of self-policing. I guess there's things that you could buy on the market, anyone could go and get, that will just make you dribble and be a vegetable in the corner. But it's how you use it. But it's an interesting question as to whether they should be governed in terms of once people are freely creating content, which isn't quite the case yet, I don't think. But
it's got to go there, hasn't it?
Yeah, well, this is it. Yeah.
It's got to be.
Yeah, well, this is it. Otherwise, everyone would be walking around with them projecting everything. It'd just be carnage. But
one of the things about HoloLens, which I found fascinating, which kind of bridges towards this idea that you're not alone, that it can be about people coming together. Is it shows how, again, I've just done a bit of looking around on YouTube and so on, and they show how it can be used as quite an incredible teaching tool for people at quite a distance. So even a surgeon, talking them through the steps they're going through. But there was another step which I thought was really interesting, was where, I don't know whether it was an architect again or somebody else, a designer or somebody, was standing in a room with the hologram on the wall in front of them, and they were trying to talk about certain features or something in this graphic or in this building that they were discussing. and the person he was interacting with was in another part of the world, but using a holographic detail was suddenly in the room with him, and they were discussing this thing together. So the person, I guess that person had the same holographic experience in his part of the world, and somehow they were in the same room together, going through and moving things around.
But that's wicked, because
That's
that's
phenomenal.
but that's professional application of really good technology.
Yeah.
When it's virtual Tinder on your sofa for like morons.
Well, it could be
that's,
good.
That's been true.
Imagine that.
That's
Yeah,
been true
sure.
of games.
Yeah.
So the other thing I was thinking of is that the first time I played with an Oculus Rift was last year in the US, and they were, just coming out, and it was at the Game of Thrones Expo, right? Like, I'm a Game of Thrones fan, and the thing made me feel sick. Like I was physically sick.
Yeah.
Well,
Not physically, like I didn't vom, but for about 10 minutes afterwards, I was like, I
That's-
do not feel right.
Yeah, it's one of the effects of them. So it's the same with the eye tracking. At the moment, when I was reading up on it, they were saying if they don't quite get the resolution right, and if it's not high enough resolution, they can't actually, you don't get the correct sensation that your brain's expecting. It's kind of like car sickness. If you're not looking where you're going, you're moving in a way that you're not expecting. And it's the same with the headset. So you do get that dizzy sensation if the resolution and field of view is not quite right.
Would that not impact? I know you said if you put someone in a 30-foot room and you can just slightly move it so that they never hit the wall. I was going to say, like, my first thought is surely something in your inner ear is going to disagree with that in some way, shape or form. Because
Yeah, it's true. But I think they're doing with it's not I actually thought it was the room moving at first when I was reading this, but it's the software slowly rotates. So subtly it's moving the image, which I guess is the same effect. So it could throw you off a little bit, but they claim it's so subtle, it's unnoticeable, but it just keeps you away from the wall.
Smart, clever, isn't it?
Yeah.
You're too young to remember this, but we used to watch this program when I was growing up called Nightmare. Who remembers Nightmare? I still think that's cool. Look at this. We've just walked into that world.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's like Minority Report, the hologlass. It's similar, and there's a lot of films which have had similar technology in before, and it's kind of catching up. And there's a lot of talk on the internet. It's like where the ideas come from, and it's actually all becoming real, which is why, hence, I left you with the thought of Enter the Matrix, because we laugh now, but who knows?
How much did Facebook pay for Oculus Rift?
I don't know actually. Not
Like
sure.
a couple of billion, wasn't it? Or a billion.
Yeah.
Worth it?
I don't know. Again, it depends on the consumer, I think.
Time will tell.
Yeah.
This is first generation.
Yeah, and it's not. That's developer kit. It's quite hard to get all the software working and get content for it.
I was going to say, from like a consumer perspective,
Yeah.
do you see it being marketed predominantly at people that are looking to use it for video games?
I think so.
Or
Yeah.
everyday life,
I think-
I want to check whether my flight is
Yeah,
done, so I'm
I
going to
think-
virtually look at the departure board in the airport.
Yeah, I mean, I think it'd be weird if everyone was walking around in them and you wouldn't be able to see where you really were. But I think gaming, yeah, exactly, yeah. So I think gaming predominantly would be the application.
So from a gameplay perspective, and you were talking about Uncanny Valley earlier,
Mhm.
for the real immersion that's not going to freak people out and put them
Yeah.
into the valley as opposed to elsewhere, do you think they're going to end up having to make the characters like the Incredibles, so that the arms look slightly wrong so that you don't feel
Yes, you
really
don't get that
doing it?
sensation. Well, people are the hardest thing in terms of CGI to create. I mean, we're not a film studio by any means, and it's not really something we specialise in or do. And when we do animations and the client wants people in it, we kind of say that's pretty tricky. We'll try and make them look as least robotic as we can. It's quite a hard thing to do, and I think video game graphics, even to be fast enough and real-time rendering, is not going to quite get there yet. Anyway, I mean, processing power things, who knows in the future. But so I think they'll just shy away from that, like you say, and have it noticeably not real.
Minecraft.
Yeah, that's it.
I think it didn't
I was going to ask what made you decide to get the kit.
We just studio's full of toys, to be honest, and it was like a few of the other toys we've got. We wanted to play with it, see what it was about, but I think commercially, again, it just depends whether people buy them and start using them, and that will really be the tipping point of whether it becomes a big thing or not. But certainly for us, if we can just bring someone into the studio and show them something really cool, it's just nice to do that. And it engages people in something, and they go, yeah, it's really cool, you're doing cool work. So for us, that's also what it's about.
Would you agree that it doesn't necessarily, or there are two camps? There's the virtual reality, which is completely immersive, which is obviously obviously one amazing target, but also there's the much maligned Google Glass approach, which is just a layer extra content onto what you can already see.
Yes.
Which is obviously going to be highly useful in an engineering environment and to do with the tab.
Yeah, I think the HoloGlass and things like Google Glass or HoloLens. Sorry, there is a HoloGlass, but I read on the internet. I'm not sure who's making that. It's hard to keep up with them all. But yeah, for me, I think they're more useful, and I think kind of combining your world with other amazing features and bringing them into the world you see is more impressive to me than something else. But if you want to play video games and completely get away from the world, then that's pretty cool. I know a comedian was saying it's great because his son or daughter can play online with their mates. They're actually playing with their friends and still socialising, but they don't come over and create a mess. So it's kind of it's a win-win in that sense. But I think they've got different applications probably in terms of the actual end user. So like you say, more engineering based for HoloLens and Google Glass.
Do you think the Oculus Rift and stuff would be a good alternative for people like theme parks that would want to move away from perhaps an old style simulator ride that has been seen and done so many times before?
Definitely, yeah. I read a few things that people were saying that's a great application for it, and you can kind of see that if you've ever been to a 4D cinema where you've kind of got the 3D, like I say, as soon as you break the field of vision, you're not really immersed in it. You're not quite there, and even there's wind blowing in your face, you're not really there, and then you get hit by some rain or something, but it's not quite immersive. If you're wearing that, when you wear it, it is really your full field of view. And obviously when you've got the headphones on as well, and if you've got noise cancelling headphones, you're just completely there. And the realer, the actual, the more real that they make the animations and the actual content, it'll start to develop how much you feel you're there. So I think it'll be pretty awesome to have that. And if you're on a roller coaster, even in itself, if they did an actual roller coaster one, that'd be pretty cool.
Yeah,
I think I've seen examples of that.
When I first saw Oculus, probably 2 years ago now, a guy at my university had created a very, very basic. He'd use Oculus and set a roller coaster track and a small propelled fan on the top of his laptop that basically made you feel like you're on a roller coaster as much as he could in on a very small scale. I just wondered if you saw, in terms of your knowledge of how Oculus works and stuff, if you saw it would actually one day end up being a replacement for simulator rides that have been so successful for so many years at theme parks.
It could be, yeah. I mean, there's another one which is kind of, you're on a table like that and it's the flying, and it's the kind of flying experience, and they've got the big fan in front of you and it jolts you around, so you really get the full feeling you're there, and it's all controlled with it, so and synced to the actual footage you're watching. So it could do.
One of those sort of air tunnel things.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, you get every sense is just telling you you're there. So it's, if you allow yourself to forget that you're not there. Cool.
Great. Maybe one more if anybody's got more. If not, I'll wrap up.
I have one quick question.
Go on.
I don't know if this is true, but knowing what you do, you probably know the answer. I read somewhere that 85% of the IKEA catalogue is not real.
It's not. Yeah, it is. Yeah, they've got a huge team of visualizers. Unfortunately, because we'd love to get that gig, but they do. Yeah, they've got a huge team in house, and they've got a huge library of every piece of furniture they create. So if they ever need it for a catalogue or to show it somewhere, they just pick it off their big library, and then they do the visuals. Yeah, so it's mainly.
Which is proper virtual reality, really.
Well, yeah, this is it. Yeah.
That's
it.
You look at those photographs, it makes you actually buy a bed.
Yeah. That's it, and that's the aim of what we're doing, still imagery wise, animation wise, and which is why that's quite an interest to us, because it's not actually a huge amount more work for us because the software we use, the companies are developing a plugin, so a camera actually produces imagery for Oculus, so we can render out the two eye channels in the two formats that I showed you, plug that into the software, and you're actually there. So we're creating all the base assets, the 3D modeling, doing the lighting and texturing as I mentioned before, and then it's just another jump on. So like I said, that's why it's another thing we can offer people, and it's very engaging when you use them. It's a shame I couldn't get our big computer that powers it. At the moment it needs quite a bit of power to run it. So laptops and things just won't do it at the moment, unless they're really beefy. But it would have been cool to show you what it's like, because it's very immersive.